Ladies and gentlemen,
They say the next big thing is here.
the Steve Warnicki Show.
Hello, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Steve Warnicki Show. I am yours truly, Steve Warnicki, and today we have a very special guest for you, an exclusive, real inside look into a police officer's psyche, courtesy of our first guest ever. Welcome, Brandon Morales.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good. Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here. I know Brandon personally, I should say that. I'm responsible for his professional knowledge as I was his field training officer when he was hired as a police officer some 12 years ago.
12 years.
Oof, goes fast, doesn't it?
It does. It flies by.
So 12 years ago, you rode with me in the car, and now you're out as a corporal training other officers.
I am.
All right. So the other day we were having an interesting conversation. I thought maybe you'd tell everybody about that conversation we were having.
Absolutely. So, I had a cable guy over the house, right? And I had a picture up, and the picture, it was a police picture. And I think that's what kind of gave it away that I was a cop. And he goes, why are cops such dicks? and that's what I said too. I did the same thing. And he was...
I mean, it's a rude question to ask.
It is, but he was being serious, and I go, okay. I go, well, if you're being serious, I'll talk to you about this. And so I explained to him, we're not dicks. I go, we view the world differently. Because you have to understand that everything we get called to is bad. It's all bad stuff. Everything's bad. It's never anyone calls us just because they're having a wonderful day. It's the exact opposite. It's usually one of the worst days, if not the worst day of that person's life. And so you got to, and I told him, I go, you got to take that and you multiply it by 40 hours a week for the next 20 to 30 years is what you experience and deal with. It's just bad stuff. And so I think that kind of helped him understand where we come from. And we got a little more in depth in the conversation. We have to learn to process things and deal with things different than other people. And this is an actual story where I had to deal with a child abuse where the child was like 1 year old, and you can just see all the bruising and actual handprints and palm prints on the kid's head from where the father had hurt him. A lot of people that would severely traumatize them to deal with it, to deal with the child, to deal with the dad, to deal with all of that. It would severely traumatize your average person. They would probably have to go through counseling and stuff like that, where we end up dealing with it on a regular basis and have to learn how to kind of decompress from it and learn how to handle it.
Do you think you're a dick?
I don't think I'm a dick. I think I just learned how to separate my emotions.
Were you different before the police job than after?
Yeah, and I always say, I go, I used to be a nice guy before this job.
I didn't know you before this job, so I can't say. But for sure, so me having done the job for 15 years, you're in your 12th year. The vast majority of things we see, we're called to see bad things. We see the worst in people. I mean, certainly, I would even guess that seeing the instance with the 1 year old that you had was traumatizing for you as well.
Right.
I mean, it wouldn't just be traumatizing for everybody. It's also traumatizing for you. You're still thinking about it, and it was one of the first things that came to your mind as an example of the things you have to see. So I suspect it's still dwelling around in there.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that. I mean, that's something that'll stay with me until the day I die.
What about another one? Tell me about another one that sticks out in your mind.
And a lot of it's kids that, they're so helpless and they're true victims, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's not even something that you see. I mean, one of them that sticks out in my head is there was a 5-year-old who had been molested, and to just hear this child, even though I didn't see anything, just to hear this child explain sexual acts, it that they should have no business knowing about, it sticks with you and it bothers you, and it just kind of like tugs at your soul. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. You know, I've been in therapy since I was like 5. Thank you, Mother. I appreciate that. I actually am sincere. I really don't think I would have learned as much as I have about myself and been able to process the things that I've also been through without that. And thankfully, the police department where I worked offered therapy free as much as you wanted to go. So of course, I took advantage of that also. But now that I'm been away from the job for a couple years, I'm still in therapy. I mean, who else are you gonna tell this kind of stuff to, right? And the therapist said to me, it was coming up, like I noticed I was nervous when traveling, hyper vigilant, maybe even paranoid. I would think you paranoid wouldn't be too strong of a word. And she pointed out to me, she said, after that many years of seeing what you saw and responding what you went to, a lot of the things that you saw ended up in death. And so your brain naturally assumes, because she used to ask me, like, what's the worst thing that could happen when you're out on a boat ride? I'm like, we could die. Like everything, that was my answer for everything. Like, I could be killed in this. That's why I'm being vigilant about the X, Y, and Z. Do you remember the fireworks story?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It just started off as neighbors lighting off fireworks.
And we were on this
Something
together.
simple.
Just a family with kids, right? A guy with his family and another guy with his wife. Everybody's lighting off fireworks. They get into an argument about it.
They get into an argument. They both go inside and get their pistols, and they come out, and it was almost like a standoff where they're across the street from one another because they lived across the street.
The pistols are hidden. They don't know they have them, but now they're more emboldened.
Yeah, and words got exchanged. They were heated, and they both. It was like it really was like a standoff. They both took their gun out. Each fired one shot.
So it turns into like the OK Corral at high noon in the Old West. So
They're standing across the street from each other. They both draw their guns. They fire one shot. The old guy gets shot and killed instantly. The younger guy, he got shot and it went through his testicle.
yeah,
And
through his balls.
yeah, and it all started from simple fireworks.
So
Just
now,
neighbors.
and I mean, honestly, like later on, you're out playing you're out doing fireworks on vacation and stuff, and it's like, what could go wrong here? This is a party. I'm with my family, and then pretty soon your testicles have a hole through them and your neighbor's dead and you're going to go to, I mean, you know what I mean? Like everything ends in death, right?
Right.
It can.
It's where you just see the worst case scenarios.
Is everybody meant to do this job?
No, not at all.
It's a tough job. Not everybody can do it, right?
It is. Sometimes it takes a while to figure out that you can't do it. I used to work with a guy who, I want to say some years in, he was having a hard time separating himself from work, and to the point to where we were talking one day, and this was towards the end because like I said, he had left the job. Towards the end, I said, "How do you know? How do you know?" And he goes, he told me, he goes, "I'm sitting there. I'm having a nice morning with my kids. We're sitting there eating cereal." And and I'm just stewing. He goes, "Because I'm so mad about things that had happened the prior day. I knew I had to do something. This wasn't going to work out because he didn't want to take it home with him every day and, essentially put it on his family." So I respect him for leaving.
Yeah, it probably was pretty tough actually to leave
Yeah.
under those circumstances, but I think that's the brave thing to do, honestly. If it's starting to affect your family life, family has to come first. So,
Correct.
we touched a little bit about this permeating hypervigilance, paranoia, permeating its way into vacations and personal life. Have you noticed that, or am I the only one?
Yeah, it's hard to relax. It's hard to go on vacations, actually. It takes a while to actually get into like vacation mode and settle down and relax. I go because you're just always on alert.
I think if I go to a place that I know, I'm able to relax and stuff. You and I have taken some trips abroad and stuff. And I mean, I come home, I think I'm honestly more exhausted after a trip abroad than when I left.
Oh yeah,
Because you're in a foreign country, you don't speak the language, you don't know where you're going. I mean, as cops, we memorize the street grid. We know what 100 block that is. We know that alley goes is a dead end. We know the other one goes through to Colorado. It's like you know everything. And you come home, it's like, Oh God, I was so exhausted from this vacation because you were on alert the whole time.
Well, and that's probably one of the hardest parts is because you're trained and you're drilled to always, always, always know where you're at. So to be in somewhere absolutely new where you don't know anything about it, you don't even know where you're at. You may know the street sign, but that's it. It's hard. It really it just messes with you.
What is your wife? We've been on vacations. What does your wife call it?
Cop mode. She calls it cop mode. She goes, you can turn cop mode off now. We're okay. You can turn it off.
Are
And
you
so,
able to?
It took a while. It took me a few years to be able to make it like a light switch where I can just turn it off and on. But even then, sometimes it goes on without even knowing it because something will happen out of the corner of your eye and just subconsciously you get into what I call cop mode where you're paranoid, you're on alert, you're watching everything.
I think there's a good side to it. Cop mode for sure.
Oh yeah.
Has kept us safe. I would imagine.
I feel like you're less likely to be victimized.
I mean, we have gone places, and you and I together, even with a big group of people, we've had red flags go off, and we're looking at each other, going, "There's a problem here." You know what I mean? like we need to not get into that cab, or we need to not go with that person, or right. And it's probably kept us safe. I don't think the people we're with appreciate this, but we know the warning signs from this.
And what's funny is, you don't even have to say anything. We both just kind of look at each other like, all right, all right.
The cab in the Bahamas. The cab in the Bahamas.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't even know if it was a real cab.
I think it was not a real cab. Brandon and I for sure concocted an entire plan just with our eyes. It was
Like an escape
okay,
plan.
like I'll hold him down.
If this goes
and
south, this is what we're doing.
and you call.
And not even a word was said.
Yeah, it was 8. We didn't have to do Navy SEAL things like forward, 2, left, right. I just looked at him and we knew.
We communicated in a series of blinks.
and it didn't. We got out of that situation before if it was going to go bad, we got out of it before it did.
Right.
Because of our cop mode, right?
Yeah.
So as a trainer now, you're able to actually talk to some of the recruits about this, and maybe you can have an effect on them early on, undoubtedly, as I had a positive effect on your career. You can offer maybe some advice to some new recruits. So what do you tell a new police officer sitting in the car with you for 10 hours a day, 4 days a week, where you have to ride along? You're just trapped together in a car together. It's a unique situation.
I mean, from day one, I'll start talking to them, getting to know them personally, and I will say, you need to get yourself a hobby. Do not make this job your entire life because it will eat your soul if this is all you live for. And leave work at work. Do not take work home with you. At the end of the day, you're done. And I think, and one of the things I suggest to mentally help them do that is change out at the station so that the moment you put your uniform away inside your locker, you're done for the day. You don't take it home. You actually separate the two. You separate your personal life from your work life.
Police work's kind of one of the interesting vocations where when you're done, at least if you're in patrol, if you're a detective, this doesn't apply, but as a street cop, you're done for the day. You have to do all your paperwork before you go home. You turn everything in, and it's over with. Things don't carry over. As a detective, you might have, I got to interview these witnesses tomorrow and turn this into the DA by Friday. But as a street cop,
turning.
Yeah, as a street cop, and oftentimes in the private sector too, you just have stuff lingering. But as a police officer, one of the great things is you turn in your paperwork, you drop the keys, and you leave, and your day is over with. Tomorrow's a new day, and they're all different. Some days you have 10 domestics. Some days you have 10 wrecks. Some days you have nothing. Some days you have 10 drug case. I mean, it's just like, it's crazy. Right? You never know what you're going to get in a day.
Yeah, you need to learn to separate yourself. So that's why I say have your cop friends so that they can help you de-stress or decompress, whatever you want to say. But they understand what you were going through. But also have non-cop friends. And the way I explain it is they keep you human. They keep it so your whole life isn't just about cop work. They keep you to where you can talk about other things and do other things that's not work related.
I mean, it's a great idea. I think cops end up flocking with cops, and you end up exclusively hanging around with police officers. Your world gets a little narrowed. It's nice to get outside of that and have some non-cop friends. I was definitely guilty of that. during my time there. So some other good stuff that comes from the job. I think I say this in my book, but Mama used to say you can't spend all night out with your friends listening to rock and roll, driving fast cars. But I proved her wrong. I joined the police department. I mean, I look back on my time, and I literally wouldn't trade that time for anything in the world. I mean, I just think about it was such a great group of guys. They were so you could trust them. They were hardworking. You hung out with them together. You were in charge of the town. It was like the sheriff was like, here's the keys. I'm going to bed, boys. Watch over everybody. And you're just like, you're in charge of the town overnight. And it's just you and this great group of guys hanging out every night and going around together, putting out fires. Well, I have probably a poor choice of words. Solving problems, arresting people, making sure that everybody was peaceful. And I think it was just among the greatest experiences. I wouldn't trade them for anything.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, I've made some of the greatest lifelong friends. Um, you walk away with so much experience and knowledge and just life lessons. Like you learn to stay calm, and I always tell people, when they start getting nervous, I go, "Don't panic." If you ever see me panic, then you should probably panic, but don't panic.
There you go.
So you learn things like how to stay calm and stuff like that. And I mean, you also learn like just great things in life, like how to multitask. You learn how to do so much. Communication is huge, and I wouldn't have learned that as fast as I did if it wasn't from cop work, because before I couldn't talk to people. Like I was actually afraid to talk to people, but now you get thrown into it and you got to talk to people you've never met in your life.
People ask if it was so great, why did you leave? And I think I would have been sad to leave even at 65 years old, but I left because I always think of life as like the biggest, coolest, most amazing all-you-can-eat buffet that's ever existed. And the prime rib was amazing, but I don't want to there's like so much other stuff I wanted to try. But I really was happy there, and I think it's important to just make the point that it was an amazing experience and that we're not really complaining about it. But therefore here today, the conclusion, there's a couple of my takeaways here. One is for officers, and that's that you got to be vigilant not to let this paranoia / hypervigilance permeate its way into your life and take over and reduce the quality of your life. And the second more important part is for people that aren't in law enforcement, is that this is the face of law enforcement. This is the guy who's in your grandmother's house at 2 a.m. when there's a bad guy in the living room and she's called the police. This is who comes in to save her. These are good people that you don't get to meet, but because you're watching and liking me and the book From Boy to Blue, and you're learning about this, you're getting to see that it's human beings that are doing the police work. It's human beings that are out there that have to witness these atrocities, and it does take a toll on them, and they're all doing a really good job of processing it while they keep you safe. But most importantly, just, Brandon, thank you so much for what you do every day.
Thank you.
I mean, it's so important to recognize that work and to know that these are the guys out there at night, because I'm no longer doing it.
Well, thank you for teaching me.
Well, you're welcome.
So
You're
I can
welcome.
pass it on now.
And this is a lot of what the book From Boy to Blue is about, what I wrote. It's on Amazon. There's no subliminal messages present anywhere in this podcast here. That you can get it and read the book. And I mean, one of the things this is what we're talking about here is showing you the face of police officers, that they are human and that they're good, decent, caring, hardworking people. 99.9% of them are doing an amazing job, and it's important to recognize that. But thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. At stevewarnicki.com, you can find your copy of From Boy to Blue. You can also find podcasts, articles, videos, trailers, all kinds of stuff. We're on YouTube, Instagram. I'll see you online, and we'll see you soon over the internet.